We are live. What is up, everybody? Aaron the dog back with the only breakdown of the week. We have no contenders series. We have no UFC, um, no Bellator, and after kind of some of the breaks of last week's cards, I'm quite okay with that. Um, yeah, it was a rough weekend after the LFA. The LFA, everything went off without a hitch. Like hit pretty much all my bets, everything. Then it's Richard Palencia broke his leg in Bellator. Everybody's seen the highlight at this point. Richard Palencia was in a good amount of my parlays. I'll be honest. CJ Hamilton felt pretty good about that fight. So either way, it is what it is. Pico threw out his arm. I mean, it's MMA. You can't predict these things, but we're going to do our best to give you a good show here for Cage Warriors 144 live from Rome, Italy. With me, as always, or as much as possible for the Cage Warriors, especially Europe breakdowns, Lewis of Norton MMA. How are you, Lewis?
Yeah, all good, man. It's nice to see a couple big names coming back into this card like Charrier and Wooding. So,
Yeah.
especially Charrier. I know he's French, but in Italy the French they travel for these guys. When I saw him against Paul Hughes in London, there was more French there than anyone else. Sounded like a football game.
Yeah, we got a really good fight. Wooding one more fight before wherever he ends up going, but thought he was going to be on the Contender Series. I kind of prefer this anyways, so I'm fine with that.
Yeah, me too.
Michele Martignoni, Bellator, and Cage Warriors fame 7-1 versus 9-4. So it should be a good main event. Currently 8 fights on the card. Dylan Hazan and Danan Dewey was removed, and they'll probably add a few more fights as the fight card goes on. We're getting this out on Monday, pretty early in the week. In fact, earlier than the betting odds. Not really too worried about that with this card. I think it's fairly reasonable to assume who the favorites will be in most of the fights. But we'll go ahead and get started here. Good fight card from Rome, Italy here. Starting in the bantamweight division, Emmanuel Zacharia taking on Bogdan Baraba. Bogdan becoming somewhat of a notable or familiar face at this point. This is, I believe, second fight now with Cage Warriors, 17-13 overall. Pretty much a definition of a killer big killed type of guy. Was killed last time out by Dewey, who he just said was out. Zacharia, also known as Thug, 28 years old, out of Italy. So crowd's going to be on his side. He's a younger guy also here. Bogdan, 17-13, lost his last time out with Cage Warriors to Dewey. Got triangle choked in the first round. Gets choked out in a lot of fights. Also has been knocked out in a few fights as well. He got triangle choked a few times now. He's been knocked out. Went to a decision once, but for the most part, he'll win some decisions, but will, for the most part, be kill or be killed. Hasn't faced a great level of competition throughout his career. Kind of lets you know where he's at. Looked over his head in the last fight, to be honest. He was supposed to fight Josh Reed, and I believe he had an injury at 142, so Josh Reed would have ran right through him. Now he's on the opening against a local fighter who has Thug tattooed on his stomach. So hasn't fought since 2019 in Emmanuel. So hasn't fought since he was 26 years old. Got a ground and pound win with Cage Warrior Italy, which is not Cage Warriors, totally different organization. Yeah. Got knocked out with Venator, which you can see that fight against Manuel Milito in 2017. For the most part, he goes in there, looks to use his wrestling, had some ground and pound, but I mean, I think he should be able to submit Bogdan, but hasn't fought in 3 years. So you're not, and I think you're going to get a pretty large number on him when the odds do come out. So Zacharia should come in, take him down, put him away, ground and pound or submission, but that would be my prediction. I just don't think Bogdan's going to have too much to offer here, but Bogdan at least has been fighting over the last 3 years.
Yeah, Bogdan just has very, very low level of grappling and hasn't evolved in many, many years. And I feel like it's a stylistic matchup to suit the Italian in Italy. He hasn't fought, as you say, for a few years. So coming back, they need a favorable matchup. They can't just feed him to the Wolves or anyone. I hope he looks a lot better than he did, at Venator, for example.
Yeah, that was a rough fight to watch.
Yeah, it's not. He hasn't looked great even in his wins either. So I think it's a good matchup, but I don't rate Barbu at all. His record is awful. in a sense of the people he's
I think
beat.
4-1 puts Zacharia on the higher end of experience on Bogdan's record.
Yeah, I mean, he could be like, oh, maybe he does have some grappling because he fought, he got a heel hook in the first round. But if you look at who it's against, Mirko Jovanovic at the time,
And you look at the heel hook,
no wins.
when you look at the heel hook, like you can
kind of
tell.
Just kick him off.
Yeah. You can kind of tell when someone really knows what they're doing going for a heel hook, and when they just are like, I learned this in the jiu-jitsu class. Let me go ahead.
It looked like he'd learned it an hour before he did it.
Yeah, and it's 17-13, so 30 fights to 5. That is definitely a red flag, and I do think that Zacharia is going to be a fairly large favorite, so not like a bet I would get behind too much. Again, we don't have odds, so we'll see. Sometimes the odds really surprise me with Cage Warriors. It's one of the reasons I really like it. You can find some guys who should not be underdogs. Maybe he sneaks in as an underdog. Who knows? I doubt it though. So Zacharia by ground and pound.
If Zacharia comes in as underdog, I would put a lot of money on Zacharia.
Yeah, Zacharia probably by submission.
Yeah,
and probably like minus 400 to be honest. So
I think he'll get his back. He'll get Barbie's back.
I think, but if we're talking about big bantamweight favorites, this female bantamweight favorite's about to be a larger favorite. We got Jasmine Favaro here, made a very impressive pro debut, but has good amateur experience as well. So kind of one of these fighters who she's making her pro debut, but like a lot of these IMAF fighters, not that she was there, I think has good experience coming in. She looked good, at least in her last one out. Only 22 years old, out of Italy, taking on the French fighter, Awasao Badwawax is her nickname. This French fighter is not going to have the crowd on her side. 1-1. She's 27 years old here. Lost her last fight back in November of last year to a 2-1 Senna van der Verock with Soko Fighting Championship 2. She also fought Soko Fighting Championship 1 against an 0-3 fighter. She went to a split decision. No available fight tape. So those are what we're working with here. Jasmine, on the other hand, we did see her up close and personal with Cage Warriors back in August. Got a very impressive win over Stephanie Evans, also making her debut, but also with a good amateur record and experience as well. So, made a statement. That one was looking really good with her grappling early, striking later. So just looks like Jasmine has it all here. As an amateur, she was with IMMAF, actually. I did misspeak there. She armbarred Stephanie Evans in there as well, knocked her out in the pros. So really like to see the evolution there. Her grappling was more what she was known for on her amateur circuit, and as a pro, she's looked to add the punches here. So I think she gets a finish here. I think this is one of the biggest favorites on the card. Jasmine all day.
100%. She should be in the parlay for me.
Yeah.
As long as the odds aren't that different, which they will be. What you've got here is a lady that's taking MMA seriously and one that isn't. Like, our Sow is shit. That is the best way to describe her.
By the way, Jasmine's from Italy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. So
22 years old. She's the future of.
Yeah, I thought Stephanie Evans was going to be much more physical in that last one out, and was not the case. She's a big girl. Yes. She really is big. Not like how I'm kind of suggesting she's big, but she's gonna ragdoll. I think she's really gonna ragdoll Awasao in this one. I don't think first round easy, no matter any way she wants, kind of thing.
MMA locker room stopping by to say MMA Mafia is looking to adopt Aaron the dog. Mafia MMA make money all day. Okay, well, I don't know about that. I'm not up for adoption, but I've never heard someone say they want to adopt me, so you must be new to there. No, I'm kidding. I know about Locker Room, Lubetia, and all those guys over there. I like it big, Moy's audio says. That's good. Which fighter doesn't get hurt this week? Well, with Cage Warriors, that's always a question.
Jasmine Favaro doesn't get hurt.
We already had her injury. With the knee injury. So maybe we got out of the way. Next fight of the night, 185. This one I'm very, very excited for. Honestly, I'm curious to see the odds on this one because this is one where if Joan Astray is a large underdog, I'm taking a shot on him. Here's my buyer beware segment here. I went to look up Joan Astray's MMA career. I had to watch a lot of Sambo, because his MMA fights aren't on any tape I could find. But his Sambo looked outstanding. It really I don't like watching a lot of different sports and saying this is going to translate, but it really, the way his game was translating does look like that Sambo is going to translate over to MMA pretty well. Was fighting some pretty good looking, physically able fighters too. I don't know a lot about the Sambo scene, but watch a lot of Sambo for Joan. Out of Spain, not a place that is known for their Sambo, but he was going like over and fighting Russians and things like that. I mean, like pretty impressive, honestly. So, and Dario Balondi, I was talking to you about before this, a very impressive amateur record, 6'3". So very big guy taking out 6 foot tall in that middleweight. 6'3", fought at 191 last time out. Dario did, but so that will be interesting to see how he makes the weight. But big Italian lost his last fight out, first loss, and it came to Will Curry. It was in 2020, 2 years ago. I mean, Will Curry looked good early. Balondi stuck around and was pretty tenacious through that fight. So, I mean, not getting finished by Will Curry, very, very impressive. Shavlat, I did not say Shavkat levels of Sambo. Absolutely not. Didn't say that. Artem Lobov level GOAT. Yeah, indeed, Moise. But 0-2, 0-2, and then he took the step over to Will Curry. He went to a decision, but it was one where the biggest compliment I can give him is he didn't get finished in the fight. Like he didn't have a ton to offer Will Curry otherwise in that one. And that is when Will Curry was, still like a superstar animal. This was before Christian Leroy Duncan came in, which, by the way, Balondi has a loss to with IMAF. You see the IMAF experience, IMMAF experience, such a hard acronym to say. I always short it by an M, but IMMAF experience. You see it in 2017 and 2018 with the European Championships and the World Championships. So very good levels of competition. He did lose to Leroy Duncan, went to a decision though. So again, Balondi, he's very, very tough. He was knocked out one time as an amateur against Mezadov, 4-0 fighter at the time in 2018.
He's currently, by the way, now 21-0.
Yeah.
Like the guy still he's an amateur machine.
Yeah, I'm wondering why he's not going pro, but yeah, I mean, Joan last fought in June of this year, got the win by rear naked choke. Both of his opponents as a pro have been undefeated. So you have one guy who's taken 2 0-2 fighters, one guy who's taken undefeated fighters. Albeit not a huge level of competition, but UAE Warrior, one of the wins coming with. And then AFL being the other rear naked choke there in the third round. Seems to be pretty well-rounded, good striker as well as the grappling. I mean, this is one that I'm just looking to sit back. It's hard without the odds especially, but I mean, if Balondi is a big enough favorite, I'm going to take a shot on Joan here. Just, but it would have to be pretty large, plus 250 or more odds. Otherwise, I'm just going to leave this alone. So I think it's going to be a really good fight. I think both these guys are very high level with their amateur and Sambo experience for Joan. So I'm interested in this one, honestly. I could see Joan pulling the upset.
I could definitely see Joan causing an upset from the tape I found. I have seen one of his MMA fights, and he's very gun shy. Doesn't throw a lot of hands.
Yeah.
His cardio kind of gassed pretty quickly as well. So if Dario can actually stuff a takedown or, do all the normal takedown striking evasions, knees up the middle, uppercuts as they cut him in, pinch him against the cage and just kind of exchange out of the clinch, then it's his all day. Yeah. He has got really good grappling as well. He's got a lot of rear naked chokes on his record in amateur. He's got a really nice guillotine as well. 6'3" for this weight class. Got really long limbs. Kind of threatened Will Curry with them as well. So I think he'll beat Joan, but I wouldn't be confident if the gap with the odds is that wide.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think Joan isn't a match for him, to be honest, with the experience and the well-roundedness. Sambo's great, but if you're quite one-dimensional, I'm not sure how far it will take you past 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm also curious to see how these guys look at the face-off. I think there's going to be a significant frame difference between these two guys. Also,
Sambo's great to get punched in the face while you're doing it.
Yeah, and Balondi is getting better, while Joan is 30-31 at this point. He's as good as he's going to be, so...
Italian MMA sucks, but they're working on it. Hey, there's a few of them.
PayPal issues, indeed. But we'll go on to the next fight here at 170. All right, I got to talk about Carol Mikalak because you probably remember against James Sheehan, I picked Carol Mikalak. I mean, there's just a few times a year where my reads.
He was your
not even
Carlston
a few.
Harris of Cage Warriors, was he?
Yeah. It's a Carlston Harris. I picked Carlston Harris over Shavkat Rakhmonov. And yeah, was not right there in case you don't remember that fight. But yeah, I picked Carol Mikalak over James Sheehan. James Sheehan melted Carol and
I told you
quickly.
he would. Yeah.
As you told me he would. It's just it's one of these things where, yeah, it's shaken my belief in Carroll that I'm not sure he's very good at all. Like his reaction to the strike, the first strike, the initial strike was just bad. 3-2. Polak here fought in April. That's when that fight happened. He had a big loss there to Sheehan, knocked down 2 minutes. Before that, had a good elbow finish of a 0-0 opponent. Lost to a 1-0 Loznin Katia in 2019 with Atlas, and then a ground and pound finish of a 1-0 and a triangle finish of a 1-2 opponent. Turns out those guys weren't very good. I just don't think he's facing a great level of opponents. I don't think they're bringing in Carroll for favorable matchups. They had him set up to take on Emil Brown. Emil Brown would have knocked him out inside of a minute, or guillotine choked him, one or the other. And now they're setting him up here. I think that he's being brought in to be a sacrificial lamb to Emmanuel Sabatino, the second Emmanuel on the card. Clark Kent, he's known as, because he looks like Superman, I guess. He did lose his last fight out. It was a very competitive fight to Michelangelo Colangelo. I personally thought he won that fight. I went back and watched that today. It was a very competitive fight. Both guys very high level, good grapplers as well. I just think Sabatino took over. Very good with his correction, very good with his positional control and everything like that as well. Pretty well rounded. Comes into fights in good shape. He does go to a decision for the most part, but just kind of keeps a steady pace here. Supposed to take on Medeiros Flammini back in March. So both these guys,
That would not have gone well.
yeah, both these guys got a break, and I think the break more goes to Emmanuel here. I think Sabatino just kind of dominates the positions on the ground. Carroll's on the bottom and loses either a decision or gets pounded out. But I think that I think Sabatino rolls in this one. I like fighters who are coming off losses where I think arguably they could win too, because you get the lesson and the motivation, I think, there, and he didn't get particularly hurt. And Colangelo is a good wrestler, good grappler himself, and he looked pretty good in those positions. I think that's where Carroll has the best chance of competing in this. So on the feet, not impressed by Carroll. So I got Emmanuel.
Yeah, I don't think either guy are particularly good, to be honest with you. I think these guys should probably be opening the card.
Yeah.
I think this is quite a good matchup because, again, I don't think they're great. But what Carroll is good at is a top game pressure. That's pretty much it. He likes grabbing arms and getting sweeps. That's all I've seen that's proactive from him.
Yep.
Other than that, he just takes too many shots. He's one of those guys that clearly, visibly has no poker face, and you can see a reaction from him every time he gets hit. I don't see Sabatino really putting it on him too much, but I do. I think it would just be a really stalemate decision. That 3 rounds.
He looks like DiChirico. He looks like DiChirico. He fights like DiChirico.
Yeah. I think it's just going to be a guard fight, to be honest with you. Pick up, slam. There's no takedown defense from Carroll, so
whoever's on top wins.
Whoever's on top wins, and I think Sabatino's on top.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, yep. Unless he can get like a.
And these are going to be. I think these are going to be very heavily favored odds in Sabatino's favor too. I think it's going to be like -2, -300, and you're getting -300 on a guy I'm fairly certain is going to go to a decision in this fight. If Carroll wins, Carroll's going to get a finish. I will say that. If Carroll wins, he'll get the finish. If Walmart DiChirico, aka Sabatino, wins, then he gets a decision.
Yeah, I think that Italian flag is gonna raise a lot of prices on this card.
Yeah, I can't,
rightfully or wrongly.
Right. That's so. It's like find that Italian who's going to slip up. Is it Zacharia? Yeah. Is it Sabatino? I think is it. Well, I'll talk about one that definitely will, but I don't think he'll be a favorite. But next fight here, these 2 fights should be opening up the card. I'm going to be making
Shouldn't be on the card.
Yeah, I'm going to be making a stake for 2 fights in a row here. We have Biondi Tyrell, I believe from Game of Thrones, House Tyrell, taking on Nicole Desegni, who...
Bryony, by the way.
What's that?
Bryony.
Oh, Brayon, whatever.
It's just Bryony.
Yeah. Bryony.
Bryony, yeah.
Is that a regular, is that
It's
a
English,
standard
yeah,
name in
English name? Yeah, Bryony, yeah.
Bryony?
Yeah.
What are tell me what
what fish, what tuna is in brine?
Tell me what what's a typical Bryony girl like in England? How would you be like, oh, she's a typical Bryony? Are they rough or they
plain Jane?
Okay, very plain. I've never heard and I'm pretty sure Desegni is she a porn star or something? She looks like she is.
I don't know, she looks like she's in WWE, doesn't she?
That's what I'm saying, or porn, or both. 9-4. Pretty sure she's been in porn, but she looks familiar. 34 years old. Jackson Winklejohn coming off of a loss to, the star-studded Elizabeth Rodriguez at 4-4 with Ari's FC4. That's what we're dealing with here. She lost a decision to Mallory Martin on the Contender Series and got Mallory Martin a contract in the UFC. Moise says she's Catholic. That's good. Yeah, I mean, what is there to say about this one? Desegni's at least faced a semblance of competition, and she seems somewhat good. Brioni, 4-4-1. She's lost 3 straight and a boxing match. Got knocked out by Molly McCann. Got armbarred by Lanchana Green. Yikes. Got ground and pound by Denise Kielholtz for some reason in Bellator. What a weird career she had. Then she got decisioned in kickboxing, and she lost with Polaris. She got arm triangled by Libby Gagny. Doesn't seem like she can do much of anything. She's won 2 decisions. She's got a submission and a KO. She also got knocked out by Kate Jackson. Desegni knocks her out? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll say is she's actually been fighting quite regularly, which I do like when these fights happen, whether it's a high level or not. I don't like someone coming off a massive skid and not improving. So I think this is a complete pass fight. Yeah. There's not much footage of either, and Bryony's terrible.
Desegni has footage, just not of her fights.
Yeah. Anyway, she's of Moy's Audio's comment, yeah.
Yep, she's Catholic. That's good. Praise God. Next fight here, we get back to the regular scheduled program of actual MMA, and we have a very good fight. This is my fight. This is my fight of the night. Personally, Carlo Petosoli. Yes, that Carlo Petosoli, the one who got deaded by Dwight Grant back in the UFC. So that is always something you have to remember.
Didn't Oliveira knock him out as well?
In 38 seconds, Oliveira knocked him out.
That quick? Yeah.
Yes. So Carlo Petosoli, and he's got a split decision win over the Darren Till defeater, or drawer, I should say, and Nicholas Dolby. That fight was just all over the place, honestly. It was a very fun fight. Petosoli just would land these accurate kicks that just knocked Dolby to the ground. And it was like Dolby be winning the round, then lose. At the end of the round. Ended up being a split. I can get why Petosoli won it, but if Dolby was just a little better at making it a dirty fight and not just leaving his head kind of on the center line to get hit by those kind of sniper shots to Carlo, he would have won that fight rather easily. And then Brad Scott was Carlo's debut in the UFC, another split decision. So another one where Carlo, he likes these fights very, very clean. He likes to be able to be on the outside, kind of pick his shots, not have to rely on his grappling. His grappling and his wrestling offensively is okay. He's a very long, tall guy, so kind of that will give guys trouble, but he typically doesn't get guys to the ground in his clinches. And then Flaminus loves it dirty, man. That is how Flaminus rolls. That's how Flaminus wins these fights over and over again. Flaminus' biggest problem is the first round. This first round, Petosoli is at his strongest and can get those knockouts, and Flaminus kind of takes his time getting in. But honestly, for me, I'll just go over really quickly. In case you're not familiar with Flaminus, it means you're not watching Cage Warriors. But 10-3, 2 straight wins for him coming in. Had a spectacular performance back in July over Finnish Khabib and Jesse Arolian. Just absolutely took everything Jesse had and then started to give it back to Jesse. Kind of reminds me of Jotko before this weekend against like Gerald Mearshart, where it's like Mearshart was expected to come in and wrestle, and what do you do against the wrestler? You wrestle him first, and then Jotko this weekend. That didn't work out. But I think Flaminis does a similar type of thing here with Petosoli, where I think that he can compete on the feet, but I think he knows where, where he's going to have the success after, I think, the first round once Petosoli starts to tire. So I think the first round, Medeiros competes on the feet. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't even shoot for a takedown in the first round. And I think the beginning of the second round or within the second round, he starts shooting for the takedown, starts working in the clinch. And I mean, for Flaminis, really good ground and pound, really good striker. For sure. He's got the grappling as well, but he likes to beat you up. I think he gets him down. I think that he gets that ground and pound finish of Carlo. Carlo's been knocked out twice before. I think he gets knocked out a third time here with Carlo. And then I'll give it over to you. The two fights with the UFC went over to Bellator, lost the decision to Accordion Duque. Accordion Duque, 15-2 record, very padded. And honestly, Carlo just looks so inactive and kind of shell-shocked in that fight. His last two fights have been against a 2-3 fighter and a 26-38 fighter. And so for me, it tells me a little bit about his confidence level coming into this. And then taking the step back up to Flaminis, a guy who is that kind of borderline UFC level, in my opinion, of Flaminis is. I think he could be signed, and I wouldn't question it. Flaminis is one as a favorite. He's one as a dog. I'll be curious as to the odds on this one, but
I'd be shocked if Flaminis isn't a favorite.
Yeah, if Flaminis is not the favorite, jump all over. If he's a close favorite, jump on it. If he's a large favorite, the odds are accurate. I think Flaminis is a rough matchup here for Carlo. Carlo's going to have the crowd behind him. Carlo trains in Rome. This is a hometown fight, but fighters lose hometown fights all the time. Mm-hmm. I think Flaminis is a bad matchup here. I think he takes it to him. Carlo, to me, is KO or bust. And he can do it, I think, anytime over the fight. I will say that. I think that's just kind of the power he has in his kicks, particularly. But I think Flaminis is too crafty and too tricky and doesn't stay in those spots. So I love Flaminis in this spot. I'm waiting for the odds to open.
Yeah, I really like Madars here because what he does is he takes your best effort. He gasses you in that first round. His defense is amazing. He's never been knocked out. Never been really rattled by any shots, to be honest with you either. The loopholes he gets is his lack of knowledge when it hits the ground. Right. And what he showed against Jesse last time out, I was there watching it, is Jesse was brilliant for that first round, and he really took him down a lot, but he just kept getting up and just wore him out and just turned it on with those sniper shots. His jab was beautiful, knee up the middle was sensational, movement was good. I think he's going to relish, finally, I got a kickboxing fight again. Like, he's got an actual striker that's willing to strike with him, and I think he's very dangerous on the feet. You think when he knocked out Oban Elliott, who's looked amazing recently. He's got a great win over George Hardwick early on in his career. So
Oban's whole pro career is amazing to just look into.
It's a good watch, isn't it? Yeah.
He's going to be really good,
Yeah, he is. And that just shows how good Madars is. The only reason that he'll never get to the UFC, in my opinion, Madars, is because he's nearly 35. So, but mate, he's frustrating for anyone to fight. No one wants to fight him. He's
been in there with Bonner, been in there with everybody too.
He has. He's only lost to leaving basically his neck exposed. Carlo's not going to do that. I would not be surprised if you just see a second or third round finish, or it's going to be a decision. I don't believe Madars will lose. I think as long as he sticks to his game plan, doesn't get rattled. I've never seen him hurt with any kind of shot. To be honest with you, he's made of granite. Yeah. So I see him beating Carlo pretty decisively.
Carlo throws really low volume too. Like he really
and Madars does not. When he starts fighting, he reminds me of, remember when TJ and Barao, and you just see the unleash of TJ against the fence. That's kind of what he does when he gets you hurt. He just unleashes these pinpoint accurate, structured shots. They're not just wild shots.
I mean, you can mark this fight. This is a fight you can come back to in the comments after. If Medeiros loses, you can tell us how wrong we were, because this is...
I'll be very surprised.
This is as close to the L word as I'll put. And I'm just so curious to see how the odds come across for this fight, because I would put... But if I was setting the odds here, I would put Medeiros at a -300 myself.
Yeah, I think that's about fair.
3-1. Like that. Yeah. So
the next one would be about -2,000 to me, though.
Oh yeah, this
Like,
one is
this is a
this
mismatch.
should be a. I mean, I'll give Albert Diaz this. He's very very tough, and offensively he's pretty impressive, but his defense is lacking pretty greatly here. Taking on Morgan Charrier, a guy who is a staple
You got to
of
put some French into that last name there.
Morgan Charrier.
Charrier.
Oh,
Yeah.
Charrier.
Yeah. They're missing the
I
accent
left the
you
R
have
E.
on the name. Yeah.
Charrier. Morgan
Yeah.
Charrier. Here. Either way, Albert Diaz out of Brazil here, 30 years old, fights with Killer Bees Muay Thai. Can find a lot of his tape on YouTube. 30 years old, hasn't fought since February of 2020 with Bellator. Took on Richie Smullen over there. Got a split decision over him there. And it was just kind of the offense barrage of the Muay Thai attacks of Diaz that got him that win. He also was taking quite a bit. He was getting taken down at times in the fight as well. So that's definitely an issue. Jose Sanchez over with AFL handled him pretty well throughout their 3 rounds. That fight is available as well. It definitely is, Albert wants to bang. He wants to be on the feet. He wants to be competing up there. And when it gets kind of exposed onto the ground, he has trouble. Hasn't faced a great level of competition. Hasn't fought in 2 years. And he did beat Richie Smullen, but now going against a guy Morgan Charrier, who is 15-9-1, only 26 years old, is Morgan. So the last Pirate, 2 straight losses coming into this, hasn't fought since October of last year. Majority lost to Paul Hughes, very good fight. Jordan Vucenic, both really good, both very competitive fights, and just fights I think
razor close with Paul Hughes.
Yeah. And he'll learn from these fights going forward. Knockout of Perry Goodwin, a knockout of Dean Truman, split decision with Louis Monarch, Soren Bach, a majority decision. So, I mean, very early on in his career to be taking on the level of competition he has been taking on. I just give him a lot of credit. He's a good grappler, good stand-up as well. I just think he's better everywhere than Diaz, and I think this is one of the more clear winners of the night. I'd expect him to be a huge favorite, and Morgan gets back on the winning track here. I think Morgan gets a finish myself, but I see the decision for Moise. So I'll take Morgan by, I'll say, submission.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, I think Morgan will win any way he wants. What he's looking to do is stand and trade as well. People are very hesitant to get to him. They kind of pick him on the outside, which Vucenic and Hughes did using leg kicks. The Vucenic fight, there was a couple shaky moments where he clipped Jordan as well in that. But Jordan got him back as well, and just volume, I think, won him that fight. And with Paul Hughes, that was 2-2 going into that last round, and it was a dead. They were gassed. They were both really tired in that 5th because it was just high energy. But I just want to point out how this may be in Italy. How many followers do people have on Instagram at like LFA or Cage Warriors level? Jordan Vucenic has about 15,000 on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Morgan Charrier has 145,000. He is so famous in France. He's bigger than a lot of French UFC fighters. He's massive out there. He gets an enormous following, mainly because of his ring walk, I assume, because he's quite a scary guy coming in as dressed as a futuristic dead Pirates of the Caribbean character. But he's really good as well. He's got if he beat Jordan Vucenic, I know he would have been called up to the UFC. And then they gave him another chance against Paul Hughes and if he won that, he would have got the rematch with Vucenic to get into the UFC. It's a no. So now I think his record kind of puts people off. Mm-hmm. But his record, just to me at 26, is just massive experience. When he's fought Vucenic, Hughes, and Soren back within the last few years.
None of those unanimous either.
No, they are so close. He just needs that little bit more. When he beat Dean Truman, that's what you want to see. That last body shot in the 3rd round, just to step on that gas a bit earlier, because he normally loses the
body
first
shot too.
Yeah, I think Albert's going to come forward and he's going to get counted hard and he's going to get clipped and unconscious very quickly. I think Morgan will knock him out inside the distance, but
I like it.
I would be absolutely shocked if Morgan lost.
Yeah, me too. I like it. Main event time.
And he's a really nice man.
What's that?
And he's a nice man at that interview.
Yeah, there we go.
He looks scary, but he's nice.
Just like me. Next fight here. Dominique Wooding the man, my favorite prospect, I think, in the bantamweight division outside the UFC right now, Martin. Let me get it correct. Martignoni, also known as the Italian Thunder, or Michele here. 7-1 versus 9-4. Don't let the records fool you. Both 26 years old. Two of the better bantamweights here. Coming into this one, Michele did weigh in for his last fight at 131. I thought that was a little bit curious. I think he is somebody who is at times thought about moving down to 125. Dominique Wooding, certified bantamweight. So in a fight that I think there's, it's going to be relatively close. That's one of those edges I really do like in Dominique. Scott Malone's a perfectly good win last time out. He really dominated Scott, honestly, and Scott's a very good veteran. Scott was just not competitive in that fight. I actually believe I picked Scott Malone for that fight.
Me too.
So Michele just completely took it away from him. The Ammon Singer fight.
Close first round.
Yeah, I know you like Adam, but
he lost the first round.
Right,
yeah, for sure.
So
yeah, I'm not delusional though, don't worry.
Yeah, and then Nathan Fletcher. I mean, one of the most beastly bantamweights there is, just from a physical perspective. And for the most part, Michele, I think that was a big part of the difference in that fight with Fletcher. He just physically wasn't able to get into the kind of realms where he could have some advantages. And I don't quite think Dominique is that same level of specimen, but that could be an issue. You have the 6-second knockout of Simone de Anna with Bellator, so you do know with Michele he's got kind of that power in his strikes. That is something definitely. 2 very quick knockouts there on his resume. I think power-wise, both these guys have the ability to put each other out with the strikes. Dominique is just sharper, better, and more accurate, I think. Black Panther 9-4. As I said, also 26, 5'9", great ridden top team. 3 straight wins for him coming into this. What he did to Nathan Fletcher was just an absolute statement. That 3rd-round knockout was brutal as well. So last 3 knockouts have all been just, things of beauty. And the Fabrique Diaz fight, I think he learned a lot from that fight. Both guys did. And I think that Wooding got better from the fight than Diaz. Diaz, I don't think actually learned the lessons he needed to from the win, while Wooding, being on the short end of that fight, did get the lessons I think he needed. I just think that he's really come into his own. He's not forcing the finish. He allows it to come to him, and they're still coming very early. I mean, his last knockout, he was planning to go 2-3 rounds. He just put his shot in the right place. Similar to kind of like SD Dumas. I know that's a weird comparison, but SD Dumas, another guy who leading into the UFC, he was finding the finishes without forcing the finishes. Mm-hmm. So that to me is what makes Dominique so good, is he's going in there and willing to go to a decision, and doesn't go to a decision because he's putting himself in the right positions. I think he has more ways to win. I think on the feet, he's the more diverse striker. He's quicker. Footwork will be, in an advantage for Dominique. Michelle's really gonna. I'm having trouble seeing how Michele wins this fight, other than allowing the power to get to Dominique here.
Yeah, everyone I know that has trained with Wooding has said how good he is at getting up from being taken down, how wily he is, how strong he is. He's got that creative, diverse attack where he can just kind of light you up with a switch kick, easily set traps that you're just going to fall into as well. But I think one of the major things with him is, since GB Top Team's been established from Team Titan, and they've got this mass amount. You think of like the guys from Cage Warriors that are just sitting there, where you've got like Will Curry and like Kingsley Crawford and Luna Kavanagh. They're all smaller guys. Sorry?
Kingsley.
Yeah, Kingsley. Yeah, he's amazing. I love Kingsley. Great guy. But they've just got a lot of talent for you to always spar with, always train with, that are your weight class. You got obviously Nathaniel Wood still there. You got Ashley Grimshaw, who used to fight obviously in Bellator, retired now, but he's one of the coaches with Brad. So I'm just trying to think. You've Mark Casey, obviously. Like, there's some real top guys there.
Yeah.
Dominique Wooding has looked nothing short of magnificent since coming to Cage Warriors, but Michele Martignoni has looked really good as well. Like since that Scott Malone fight has changed my mind slightly on him. Now Scott Malone and Dominic Wooding are completely two different beasts. I do think Dominic Wooding is going to completely dominate the striking because he moves 10 times better than Amasinga does, and he's got better defense than Nathan Fletcher, and he's got, you think of how he dominated Nathan Fletcher to how Michelle lost to him. It's a good comparison to have, and just worry about the takedown and the grindiness that Michelle can do, and also that he has got really good boxing. Inside that pocket, his hands are fast, and there's no doubt in my mind that he could crack Wooding. And I think it's because I'm so invested with Wooding at this point that I just don't want him to lose. And I think there's that bias, that scared biasness. Like, I bet when you saw SD Dumas on the Contender Series, your bumhole was doing this for a little bit.
Not very long because it took 42 seconds from the choke.
No, but the whole build-up, you're just there going,
oh yeah, it's nothing.
It's because you're invested. It makes it a little bit more hesitant. But I do think Wooding is going to win. It's 5 rounds, and I don't see him going decision over 5 rounds. I think he'd gas. I think Michelle would win a distance. I think he'd win the 5 rounds. I think Wooding is more likely to just sensational knockout again because it's what he does. It's what he does. He's always done it his whole career. Over in Bama, if you remember, he flying knee Dominic Dillon.
Oh yeah,
magnificent, absolutely magnificent. I was there for that one. It was awesome. Terry Brazier was the main event for that fight, and Terry Brazier. But yeah, I just think Wooding's a little too much in the striking department, and Martignoni, what he likes to do seems to be he likes to strike. Like, he's not a striker first and foremost, but he gets lured into that. Like, Adam Amasinga was like, I want to strike, and he goes, all right, let's strike, and turns out he's better at striking than Adam. So it's that kind of thing. So I personally believe Wooding will win inside the distance. I'm going to go with a sensational knockout, probably around the 3rd round.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see the odds on this one. I think Wooding's going to be a -200 favorite, though.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be anything ludicrous. And I do think this fight is probably as dangerous as you could get on the Contender Series to get yourself into the UFC. I think Martignoni has proved that he's probably around that level. Not quite UFC caliber, but that one notch under.
This could be easily if you covered it up and said this was a Contender Series fight. I wouldn't be like, no way.
Yeah, I would not be surprised.
Yeah, so should be a good one there. So that is the main event for the card. Most likely there are going to be fights added to this card as it goes. Just starting at the bottom, we're both on Zacharia. We're both on Jasmine. Dario Balondi should get this one done, but if Joan's a big enough underdog, maybe I think about touching it, but probably not. I think Sabatino just takes a decision. We both are on Desegni. Maduras Flammini, we both believe gets it done somewhere inside the distance. We're both on Charrier, and we're both on Wooding. So we agree on all 8 of the fights coming up.
I think that's the first ever time we've ever agreed on every single fight.
Yeah, so there you go. You got your parlay done and everything like that. 8 for 8
card parlay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 8 fight, with most likely us hitting most of the favorites there. But it is what it is. 8 fights, 8 agreements. That means probably money for you guys. So go ahead and check them out. They're going to be in the description. Go check out Lewis's content over at Norton MMA. He's been putting out some really good new stuff. It's great content you're not going to see anywhere else. Lewis, anything else coming up for you, though?
No, other than what you just said. I got a video come out about 40 minutes ago. Go check that out. Covering the UFC card. Just what is it? Askarov versus Royval. Came out about 6 o'clock my time.
All day in that one.
The other way. There you go.
Oh boy,
I'll tell you why. That's why. Go watch the video. You'll see
why
I
always like disagreeing with you. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we didn't have that opportunity today. 8 fights, 8 agreements here. Cage Warriors 144 breakdown is in the books. That's the only breakdown for the week. Next week, there's an LFA. There's the UFC. I think maybe there's a Bellator too. So should be back with more MMA breakdowns next week. But we are all set. Keep taking care of each other out there. Peace out.